Hi, this is Howard Tiersky, CEO of Moving Interactive, with another installment in our Digital Innovation series. Today's topic is mining your call center for digital gold. Here at Moving Interactive, we work on projects that involve driving web or mobile transactions across a range of industries, including online shopping, financial services, subscriptions to digital or traditional media, and other categories. Now, there's a natural tension between the call center and the digital team in many organizations. In many cases, digital channels are correctly viewed as a lower cost way to interact with customers, and a priority is placed on shifting as many customer interactions to online as possible. At the same time, call center interactions generally have higher conversion and cross-sell. In many cases, a skilled and motivated customer service agent can be more effective and more intelligent than a website can at selling. And there are many nuances to this. Websites excel at displaying visual information, which clearly is not possible on the phone. The reality is that both channels have their role and optimally should play off one another to optimize the overall value of the customer's experience and the overall customer value for the enterprise. Now, there are actually many facets we could talk about regarding the interplay between the call center and the digital world. But today, let's focus primarily on this one: the call center as a goldmine of rich information to aid in the ongoing improvement of the digital experience. How does it do that? Well, before we dive into that, let's review for a minute what we are really trying to achieve when we optimize a digital channel. When we look to improve the business outcomes of any digital experience, we usually begin with a model that looks like this. Ultimate business benefits are almost always correlated with trying to drive some kind of customer behavior, such as increased conversion, transaction size, or repeat business. If we can successfully encourage the customer to engage in the desired behavior, we achieve our business goals. So one way to look at our job in the digital world is that we're here to drive desired customer behaviors. The most successful way we have found to do that is to start by first trying to understand who are the people whose behavior we're trying to drive. What are their key characteristics, their goals, their concerns and fears, even their hopes and dreams? Second, we want to know, with respect to the specific behaviors we want to drive, what are some of the motivations that trigger that specific behavior, and what are the concerns that hold it back? For example, if we're selling large flat-screen TVs, we may find that for a certain segment, the immersive thrill of watching a football game on a giant set in their own living room is a major motivating outcome. Or perhaps it's impressing their friends with the size of their display. At the same time, uncertainty over how to install a large heavy TV into their wall might be a point of concern or a buying objection, as salespeople refer to it. Other buying objections can include cost, reliability, trustworthiness, fit into their lifestyle, etc. Understanding how to increase a customer's motivation towards their desires and your desired behaviors, and how to help overcome their objections, that's the key formula for conversion. Third, we want to know, with respect to a specific digital experience, perhaps one which we're currently trying to optimize, what characteristics of that current digital experience, perhaps its features, content, design, navigation, which ones are successfully pushing those motivational buttons and avoiding or overcoming the key points of resistance, or where is it that that balance is not working well for users? Okay, so to optimize the digital experience, we want to understand who our customers are and what behaviors we specifically want from them, what drives them towards the behaviors we want to target and what holds them back, and where our current digital experience succeeds and fails to drive behavior. Getting a clear perspective on this information is hugely helpful in directing our efforts towards designing the most effective digital experience and prioritizing investment. Okay, now, back to the call center. The call center and the people who work there can be a tremendous resource in helping us understand the customers. Let's talk about 4 specific techniques to mine your call center for the kind of digital gold that will help us improve our online experiences. First, consider your customer services representatives as user experts. After all, they typically are trying to do the same thing that we are trying to do in the digital realm, to influence the customer's behavior. In fact, call centers are full of people who spend all day, every day, talking to your customers and potential customers. If you spent all day, every day, doing anything, after a while you'd be pretty darn good at it. So your call center reps generally know and understand your customers very well. Talk to them. Most CSRs have months or years of trial and error experience around what types of approaches work well with customers to get the desired behavioral outcome. In sales-oriented call centers, many CSRs are on commission. The ones who don't figure out how to understand the customer and drive their behavior, they generally don't make much money, and so they don't stay long. The ones who figure out how to make it work, those are the ones you want. In fact, ask the call center management to connect you with the most successful reps. Call centers always have very detailed stats on each employee's performance. Talk to the ones who have the best track record at driving behavior and ask them their secrets. Also, consider finding a few digitally astute CSRs and bringing them into your design process occasionally. Let them look at your prototypes for new features and listen to what they have to say. And don't do this with the executives that run the call center, at least not for this purpose. You want the people who spend their days on the phone with customers. They may not have digital perspective, or at least not as much as your online teams do, but that's fine. You can filter their input accordingly, but definitely gather their raw insights. Second, get trained as a customer service rep, or at least read the call center training materials. Buried in your call center, probably never looked at by the digital team, are most likely binders full of training material on how to talk to customers, how to elicit their needs, and different tactics on how to close them and overcome their objections. While the quality of this material varies by company, of course, we find it tends to be full of many insights about customers and how to drive their behaviors. Check it out. Third, jack in. Have you spent time jacking in? Great. Then you know that it means spending time sitting side by side with a call center rep with a second set of headphones, listening to their conversations with customers. At Moving Interactive, we always try to have members of our design team for a web or mobile project spend a day or two, yes, all day, sitting in the call center with reps listening in on calls. Different reps sometimes have different styles, and different types of customers elicit different techniques from them. Sometimes it's tough for a CSR to tell you top of mind all their tricks, but if you watch them in action for a while, you start to see the patterns. It's helpful to be right there physically with the rep as well, because between calls, you can ask them about the techniques that they used in the prior call, why they did what they did, and they often can give you better insights when it's fresh in their minds. It can also be effective to listen to the recordings of past calls. While it has some drawbacks compared to listening live, it has one major advantage. Call centers with sophisticated call recording systems can often allow you to search for recordings of calls by various tags. So for example, if you're trying to address a particular issue on a site, let's say for example, tools for billing disputes on a credit card site, you can search for and find a set of calls that just focus on that topic. Whereas if you were sitting in the call center, you'd get a somewhat random assortment of different types of calls. I have to confess that on some projects I've loaded up my iPod with MP3 files of calls provided by the client and listened to them on long car trips. Maybe not as interesting as books on tape, but well, I guess it depends on the book. And some calls are pretty entertaining, actually. Okay, fourth and lastly, customer relationship management systems used in your call center should contain a wealth of useful information that you can leverage. What percentage of your customers are calling? For what reason? What are the reasons your customers cancel or return your products, and which are the most common? Running these types of simple reports out of your CRM system can yield surprising insights. Okay, so there are four techniques for gathering data from your call center. 1, use your CSRs as user experts, interview them and involve them in your design process. 2, review the training materials for insights. 3, jack in and listen to calls or listen to recorded calls on a specific topic. 4, mine the CRM system. Now let's slice this a slightly different way. Let's dive in a little deeper on what specifically are you looking for through all these techniques to gather information. Well, in many cases there are surprising insights that might not fall into one of the categories I'm about to describe, but let me briefly mention 4 types of things that we always look for. First, types of customers. Often you will find that you can learn about some very useful distinctions between customers along some particular dimension. For example, if you're selling vacations, might discover your CSRs try to find out very quickly in the call whether kids are traveling or whether it's an adult vacation, because that makes a huge difference. If you're selling exercise products, understanding a customer's past experience with exercise or weight loss or fitness can inform how you sell them. So notice these types of distinctions that CSRs might look for. We'll do a whole other video on the topic of customer segmentation. But keep an eye out for the different flavors of customers and what distinguishes them and how the CSRs look to determine that early in a call. In the digital realm, it's not only important to keep in mind the various different types of customers that we need to appeal to, but sometimes it's possible to segment the customer and provide a different experience to different types of users. You can gain insights into how best to do this and when it makes sense to focus on this through this type of research. Second, the second thing to look for, sales tactics. You can learn the different key objections that different customer segments tend to have and how different sales tactics are applied in different situations against those objections. What product attributes are emphasized in different circumstances? What types of wording and language is used? What tone or style is used? Bear in mind, these CSRs have often iterated for quite a long time to find the right recipe that will be most effective. Another thing to listen for in the way of sales tactics, how does the CSR handle the upsell? Conversion is typically higher in a call center than online anyway, but upsell is typically much, much higher. Are there tactics you observe in how the CSRs handle upsell that you can adapt for online? The third type of information to look for, website problems. A certain percentage of the people calling the call center have already been on the website or mobile application and are calling because they were unable to complete their task. Perhaps because the content or feature they were needing was not available, or perhaps because they just couldn't find it or got frustrated. Naturally, we want to understand these situations in detail. Listen for these issues when you listen to calls, but also ask the CSRs if they can remember what are the most common types of issues they hear about, and search the CRM system for these issues as well. If that's hard to do, or the information, the specifics about the problems people had isn't there, see if you can get fields added to your CRM system to specifically capture anything a customer says about problems with the digital channel and monitor those systems regularly. And lastly, listen for unmet needs. Some people may call the call center because they want to buy something that they can't find on your website. And maybe the reason they can't find it on your website is that you don't sell it. But patterns of callers looking for the same thing that you don't offer might suggest a new opportunity. And the same goes for tools or features of the website or mobile app that customers may be seeking. Okay, so to summarize that, 4 types of things to look for across all those 4 sources of information we discussed earlier. Insight into the customer types, sales tactics including upsell, problems with the website, and unmet needs. Now, a few thoughts in closing. First, call centers and digital channels are different. Of course, not everything that works in a one-on-one voice conversation can work online. But some things actually can be lifted directly from the call center and applied right away on the web. And in other cases, it might require the imagination of your digital team to figure out how to utilize a call center learning in a way that works in digital. Second, we focused here today on call centers, but in reality, many of these tactics can be used with other customer-facing roles as well. For example, I remember a project to create the new digital customer experience strategy for General Motors. We spent a lot of time in dealerships understanding how good salespeople sell cars, and it generated a ton of great insights for the web. And lastly, as useful as the call center can be to the website, there are many ways that the digital team can be very helpful to the call center's effectiveness. For example, it's common for call center reps under certain circumstances to encourage a customer while on the phone to browse to the site, perhaps to see a product photo or access some other type of visual information. Is your website making this as easy as possible? For example, are there URL shortcuts to commonly used web pages in phone discussions that would save CSRs from reading off long URLs on the phone? There are many ways to maximize enterprise value through close cooperation between the channels, both digital and traditional. Hopefully, you already have this type of mutually beneficial relationship going on in your organization. Okay, let's wrap it up for today. I hope this has been valuable for you, and I'd encourage you to check out our other thought leadership videos and white papers on our website at movinginteractive.com, or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or any of our other social media touchpoints. And if we at Moving Interactive can be of any help to you in your digital innovation efforts, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Full contact info is on our website, or email us at info@movinginteractive.com and we'll get right back to you. With that, this is Howard Tiersky, CEO of Moving Interactive. Thanks for watching, and as always, wishing you tremendous success with all your digital innovation efforts.